next panel discussion, the last one before lunch. And it's entitled The Bridge, so carrying on the theme that we've been talking about there, and delving back into a topic that we dipped our toe into this morning, which is basically things escaping from the lab and contributing to economic growth. It's entitled From Lab to Industry and From IP to IPO. And we're going to look at harnessing the power of science for that economic growth and, of course, very importantly, so societal benefit as well. We're going to explore the lab to industry approach and the IP to IPO movements and see how they're accelerating progress, of course, in emerging markets. Really delighted to invite our guests to further enlighten us on this today. We have Dr. Alex Aliper. He's the co-founder and president of In Silico Medicine, recognized as one of the top 20 biotech executives under 40. He's in the right seat. Thank you, Alex, for helping us out there. Stina Amidi, managing partner of MEF for Plug and Play Tech, based in Spain, but here today and responsible for the expansion across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So Stina making his way in the middle there. Professor Tony Chan, the former president of King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, better known to most as KAUST, obviously recognized for many, many accolades, but really working and enhancing the research in AI and health. Joining him on the stage is Professor Dr. Hasan Mandal, rector at the Istanbul Technical University, an esteemed metallurgical engineer and the world's top 2% most influential scientists, and obviously very significant publication record as well, like many on the panel. And they are going to be ably moderated by Ling Leutner. She's head of general manager of Yingzhou Industrial Technology Research Institute of the Co-op Education Division in China, with great expertise across academia and industry in Silicon Valley and, of course, Canada. So welcome to you all, and we'll look forward to enjoying the conversation. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our panelists here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning, almost in the noon time. And we have a very distinguished panel today. And then the topic actually is very specific, from the lab to market, and from IP to IPO. So you will see, if you're the previous panel, we talking about the general business connection and the Asia contribution or growth. And then today, this panel is talking about from the original source of innovation from university to incubator, and then to startup company. Okay. As you probably know that our panel, we have two from a university, two panel from university, Professor Chen and Professor Mandel. And then we also have from incubator, Sina. And then we have a startup company as well. So from here, you can see that in innovation ecosystem, we have a supply chain here. Okay, the supply chain. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to asking a question from a professor, okay, from university. So you're either the former president or the current rector. So what do you see from university innovation? Okay, and then TTO, we talk about TTO, mean technology transfer office. Okay, so what do you view about that? Yeah, Professor Chen, yes.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I want to make two comments first. One is on the role of university, especially research university, in the topic you talk about. All university of science and technology faced with this challenge of from lab to industry and from IP to IPO. We are usually on the first part. We have labs, we have IPs. We try to do more on the other side. But the first point I want to make is in this world of AI-dominated discussion, which is dominated by industry, really, because they have the deep pockets and so on. I think universities still have a big role to play. No better example than if you look at the Turing Awards, which was a few years ago, to the latest Nobel Prizes. In both physics and chemistry, they were both given, at least most of it is given to people who work in AI. But if you look deeper, if you start with the chemistry award, right? It's given to two from Google DeepMind for doing AlphaFold. They get the start as their own startup. I think Hasabi was from UCL and started his own thing, which was then bought by Google. So they had their start in there. And the other half was from someone from University of Washington, in protein design.
How long does it take to get from the Nobel Prize to industry?
So I think in this case, I think they already have, right? They have, let's say, AlphaFold is already used by many, many people, by basic research people, but also probably by big pharma. I'm not an expert in that. So in this case, it's the reverse of the traditional role where you throw the results over the wall and let it happen. I think the physics Nobel Prize is even more striking, right? Because it's given to Jeff Hinton and John Hopfield. And I know of the work, although I don't know them personally. And both of them are academics. Hopfield started a long time ago, when he was a professor at Caltech, for example. And I would say back then, most of the people were skeptical about this approach. I think even the machine learning that we know today, I'm kind of in that field myself, even 10, 15 years ago, if you ask people, they would not believe it. Most of the VC fund would not invest in it. Most of the research funding agency would not fund them. So these people, they are pioneers, they believe in themselves, they have confidence, and you see the result. The three Turing Award winners, by the way, two of them are Canadians, actually. So they all associated with universities, McGill, Toronto, and NYU. But they all have corporate sponsors. They have another role. So this is a new way. So my first point is that universities have a role. It will continue to have a role, and the time scale is much longer, the time horizon. That's number one. The second point I want to make is, why didn't this happen more often, faster? Because in a way, there's a different roles of university from industry. And the mindset, the culture, the motivation, the incentives are all different. And I think, universities are not like corporation. The students are not the employees. The students, they do most of the research. The professors are not managed, especially in the research, by the president. I was president, I don't manage the research. Okay, so you have to somehow create a system where everybody recognizes the need for the whole to respond, to be able to do lab to industry and so on, but yet make it easy for them to do. And you cannot expect everybody to do it. You go to Stanford.
Can I ask you one more question?
By the way, it's okay with the moderator, right?
Oh, question.
Yeah. Please.
I would like to know from the universities on the panel what you do in order to give the IP to the entrepreneur that's trying to make money using it. Because I know traditionally the US is good at it, Canada's okay, Europe is absolutely terrible. But in this case, what are you doing to give the IP back?
Can I continue to explain? I was coming to that, or
yes,
maybe I
okay. I'm just
colleague
about to
answer.
asking the IP policy for different university in the different region. Yeah, which is okay. Yes, you jump
Okay,
ahead.
so I was
Yes.
going to give some examples, what we do. One, of course, you can give the percentage of the royalties and all that. I think Waterloo is very good at that. I think CMU in the US is very good at this. But that by itself is not enough. You need to fund some of the initiatives in the lab. You got to provide the staff support so people can build prototypes and so on and so forth. You got to bring in the industry. You might want to start your own venture funds. In fact, at Cows, we started a venture fund. It's called Capital K, 200 million US. So the idea is you look at IP. They will help them start or spin in startups that will benefit Cows or Saudi Arabia in this case. I give another good example, which is I was president of HKUST, so Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. You probably don't know. The most famous drone maker, DJI, was from there. He started by a student when he was an undergraduate. So in that case, it was because there was a mentor, there was a professor who really mentored a team of students. He was one of them. And so it's up to individual effort. And so the rest is history, so to speak. Well, I think they have like 80% of the world market. So ultimately, it's up to the student or the startup, the entrepreneur. They have to drive, but the system, the university got to support them and not put barriers in front of them. I think that's really,
But,
I see our role.
I mean, it's a good example, but the problem with that example is the university didn't pay for the research. If the university helps fund the research, it owns the research. And one of the biggest issue I have as an investor is when I try to invest in a research-based university project, 20%, 50% might be owned by the university, and it almost comes out with like a golden weight. Whereas it's great that they got funding, but unless you're an undergrad and you start a company where the university doesn't touch it or own any of it, you're not fundable later in the traditional VC model.
I think that is a good starting point. I think, Sina, maybe you observed one of the case, or maybe many of the case. But just to give a background about university's IP policy. As Professor Chen said, I working at University of Waterloo for 14 years for commercialization. So for the IP belong to who? That is very important. As you observe that US, because of the Bayh-Dole Act, so they naturally, all the IP from the basic research belong to university, okay? But at the meanwhile, in Canada, part of the university is individual-owned IP policy, not institute-owned, but it's individual-owned, give you a much more flexibility to commercialize your research. Okay, yeah, so you're talking about probably some 20% or 40%, even more, being owned by university end up with. Actually, it's not, okay? So from individual-owned, very innovative university, quite often, you do a lot of work for incubating, but you only end up with occupy around 3% to 5%, and up to dilute as well. So, okay, so it's a different continents have a different IP policy. Okay, it's not a straight cut. Okay.
For early stage startups, Waterloo does an amazing job to take them from early stage and letting them grow. I think it does much better than many other universities, and it hits above the belt. It does better than expected in every way. We do a lot of investments through Waterloo.
No, that's a good. Nice to know. Nice to know. Yeah. Also, we did some survey for the last 10 years at university. We have a total of 15 unicorn coming up, just because of really flexibility possibility. So I want to, since we already observed some of the basic research, but I wanted to ask the Professor Mandel, I know you have some observation for TTO and also some challenges, right? So please, Professor Mandel.
So good morning. So I mean, when we are talking about IP issues, I mean, again, it's a long discussion, but also I bring the point that I mean, in terms of the type of challenges which we have been facing, it's giving, I mean, another discussion point for the role of the universities. So, I mean, the role of the universities, I mean, it's used to be create the knowledge, but this creating the knowledge and transferring the, I mean, stakeholder, I mean, most of the time is the industry, but the type of challenges which we are facing, it's much more complex, dynamic, and variable, especially after the COVID. So the type of transferring the knowledge to the industry may not be enough with the traditional methods. So which means that, I mean, we are saying that, I mean, for many years, collaboration is a keyword. But I think the type of challenge which we have been facing, changing this keyword from collaboration to the co-creation. So I think this is a kind of an issue at the moment, and also especially the emerging countries. We have been discussing that because the transferring the knowledge is not only one way now. It should be reversible. So which means that when we are giving the role to the universities to create the knowledge and transfer it to the end user, so this type of challenge, it's not that simple. So, I mean, we are facing with environmental, economical, social, technological, and geopolitical type of complex solutions. So, therefore, the knowledge transfer between the creator and the user should be reversible. So, which means that is a kind of co-creation rather than the collaboration. I think when we are talking about an IP issues, not only in the traditional way, I think this is a kind of a way that we should be think about it. So it's not only transfer in one time. And also the second point for the role of the universities, it thought to be create the impact for the society. But also again is changing, especially after the COVID, is that create the impact together with the society. So I mean, creating the impact for the society to the creating the impact together with society. So these are the, I think, type of an issues which are quite, at least from my perspective, at least for my country, is new in terms of the given to the right role. And I think the third aspect for the role for the universities, of course, is an important and always is the talent. And I can see at least from my country and my university as well, that our talents is not in some time, most of the time my observation, they are doing better than us. Better than us means that better than the professors. So which means that their peer learning is becoming more and more important, other than the teaching in the auditorium or classroom, and the type of creating the knowledge and also creating the right IP. I think this is a kind of another matter of the discussion in terms of from the talent side as well. So this is at least that which I would like to be aware that. So when we are talking about from the lab to industry and from IP to IPO, it shouldn't be in a traditional way of the one-way type of an interaction. It should be a kind of a reversible way. And also the talent is becoming much more important in this respect.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, for commercialization, it's not that easy, but if you specifically building the talent, okay, so to make people to driving the enterprise moving forward will be much, much easier. So now, from the university, we spin off all the company. Now the company needs some space and an earlier stage seed investor. Right? So, Sina, you're talking about plug and play, right? So I'm familiar with your plug and play Silicon Valley, and quite often you have a virtual event attending. So talk about in this region, okay, plug and play support.
So for us, we invest in 200 companies a year, and we have 50 offices around the world that we can help a startup grow very quickly. Unfortunately, one of the issues we have is the universities are very political. Funding doesn't come from the same place. The ideas aren't the same. The goal isn't to become a successful startup or a successful business. The goal is to get funding for your research. And because of this politics for us, we have 50 different interns around the world inside of universities helping scout. So this event that we were talking about, we're invite everyone. Every Wednesday and every Friday we have a pitch day. And we scout from these interns to bring the best startups to these pitch days, and we invest in these startups. Now that for us is the youngest, earliest stage startups, but they need more, right? They need steps to get to the successful place where they need to get. They can't just be first money in. At first money, you're finding market fit. I believe the research is great, and good startups don't need help with research. What we do is we help them with business development and finding market fit. In this region, what's very important is the talent is here. I mean, we see the amount of people outside. This country has grown incrementally. But they need to start thinking globally very quickly. We need to connect the local market with the global market and make them think global from day one. Transitioning from a local startup to a global startup is incredibly difficult. But the mindset starting global, connecting to the world is what's important. So we need to make that ingrained in the people. So when they go to raise B round or C round, which is hard to raise here, it's really hard to raise in Europe. It's the only places you can raise it are London, New York, and California. Of course, there are other ways, but 90% of it is in those three locations. Then they need to be set up correctly from day one, and they need the right cap table, the right investors, and they don't need these hurdles that we put in front of them.
That's great. That's great. So that is because you plug and play have all the different office, right, in the different region. So helping startup company to cross over different continents. That's great. Yeah. And on the panel here, we have a startup company. Yeah, it's not a very mature startup company. So you talk about what about your IP portfolio and how to benefit for you for the business model.
Yeah, great pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm a president of In Silico Medicine. We're a drug discovery company focused on discovery of new medicine against age-related disorders. In terms of IP, I agree with the sentiment shared by previous panelists. Like in university, it's important to patent, right? Because IP means value. That's how you validate that your research is valuable. But in terms of tech transfer, it's very complicated and tedious and time-consuming. So that's an area for an improvement. In terms of our strategy at In Silico, we have developed an AI platform that allows you to go from zero to clinical candidate to the actual molecule that goes into human in record time and under 18 months instead of 5 years. Like it takes in the industry traditionally, and a fraction of the cost. So we try to use the platform, the IP know-how that we created. And by the way, we don't patent everything. So we keep something as know-how. We also provide it as a software to the industry, to the academia, so they can do the same. So we use the platform to accelerate those timelines and make drug discovery more affordable, so we have more medicines out to help patients. And ultimately, the platform is generating molecules. The ultimate asset, the ultimate value of the platform is a molecule. So one asset can be worth like $5 billion. So with AI platform, we can design dozens of those platforms. So from 2019 to now, we have generated 20 clinical candidates. 9 of them are already in human clinical trials. And yeah, I think it's important to do both, to patent and out-license, to do open source, to advance the science as well, and to publish. So the rule of thumb for us, and we try to publish a lot. So we have 20 papers published every 6 months, and have about 200 papers published in our history. If we're going to publish something important, we patent, file a provisional, right, and then publish. And if it's less important, so we just publish, and in some cases we also provide an open source platform, so the community will benefit and contribute, and we will advance that.
Yes. So for your companies, the IP reach, I know before we're talking about, you are some of your pipeline, you're licensing out, right? And for revenue, royalty fee collection. But some of the core IP portfolio, you keep it to yourself. That is your core business, and you're further developing it, right?
Exactly. Yes. We're like a bakery, right? We bake cookies, yes, and sell those cookies to another, like cookie makers. So yeah, but some cookies are crucial to us to develop ourselves. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for the life science companies, quite often it's like that. Yeah, it's very uniquely arranging their IP portfolio. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay, Professor Chen, you have something?
Can I ask a question of my
Oh, sure, we interact between.
So I want to understand better what these hurdles you're talking about and how university can improve or even remove those hurdles, please.
Yeah, I mean, one simple thing is timeline. It's not easy to contact professors, and it's not easy to navigate through a professor the politics of a university. So for us from outside, you try to help the students or the research, but when you go and you knock on the door, it's almost impossible to find the right place. I have an example at Stuttgart University. We went to the AI professor. They're very interested in doing something with us. It's funded by Daimler, but we want to do it today, and they want to do it eventually. So that's one big issue. Another issue is many universities own the IP, which we talked about, but sometimes they have internal acceleration programs or investors, And when they have that, their mind is closed. That is the best one. That is the best accelerator. That is the best investor. But a startup, the best startups in the world choose their investors based on who brings them the best benefit, based on what part of their company they're missing. So if you're a very, very good research-based company, then maybe you need business people or marketing people or HR people. You don't need technology people. So the investor from the university might not be the best one. It might be better to get someone who can help you scale.
So on your first point, is it the individual professor who have a different time scale, or is it a university who's putting barrier?
I mean, as you said earlier, universities are a bunch of professors doing their own research. It's not a cohesive unit working in one direction. It is being pulled in every...
That's what universities are.
Yes. Okay. Sina, I wanted to give you a little bit tips when you're going to a university. Remember, I told you that institutional-owned policy, next time you directly go to the TTO. Okay, the Technology Transfer Office. Also, some university called Commercialization Office because they owned all the IP. So it's much easier for you from A to B, straightforward, go to the TTO. Okay, that is one thing.
I will try.
Yeah. And then for the individual-owned company policy, and then you can go to the lab, the center, or the professor. Research.
We have a TTO.
Research team. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So my question for all of you is, I know from academic, so you probably have some policy and to entry barrier, whatever. And from outside, from an incubator, I understand the plug and play. You have initial investment, right? Investment. Can you tell us a little bit the term about that? So that to benefit for all the startup company.
So there's many ways to invest. And the way we invest is we don't believe in the cookie cutter model. We look at the startup, we judge their value, and we invest in the startup. We love the idea of buying 5% for very little, and we love being the first check-in. So we have 34 unicorns, and of the 34, 20 of them, we were the first check-in. So that is what we do like to do. We do not run a Y Combinator model, which is 125,000 for 7%. We love those models, and we, of course, will make those investments, which we have something called Startup Camp, where we do that. But if a company is a little bit farther, if they've already invested government money or grant money or university money in their research, we will look at them as a different scale because they deserve to be at a different scale. But I do ask all startups, do not take money because it's offered. Take money because it can give you value. The first money in can cripple your company for the rest of its life. And I think in this region, there are many investors who will do that, especially the ones that are taking advantage of bringing you in or helping you very early. There's amazing investors, and the amount of sophistication of the money in this region is at the level of global. But not everyone follows the same rules, and we have to look at it as a global startup early and make sure the cap table stay clean from the beginning.
Great, yeah, thank you. Hopefully, whoever in our audience, startup company, you know the term, right? So the different incubator have a different term. But however, for the startup very, very earlier, pre-seed, and then they are really important for the startup company to be survive. Okay, survive is very important as well. Yeah, Professor Chen.
Yeah, I want to address the comment you make. So, speak a little bit about what at Cows. I was former president as of 1 month ago. What we try to do to address some of these issues. I mentioned we started our own VC fund. The other thing we want to change the mindset of the professors. Again, as I said, you don't want to. Every professor to do this, and not every professor can do this. So we added criteria in our faculty evaluation, agenda. So impact and commercialization is one now, in addition to teaching, research, and service. So not everybody has to check all four, but you can say if you make impact. Before, the academic culture is if you deal with industry more, you are not holding up your end of the bargain. You're not pulling your own weight within the department, and that becomes a disincentive. So we try to do that. And of course, when people have the idea, you need to facilitate, you need to help them. Just having funding is one, having the facility. Some university let people take leave so that they can start up their own company. We all try to do that. But I want to hasten to add one more point. That is, the role of a university, in a way, is like it's like the GP of society, if this is an analogy. So in society invests into these professors. Probably 9 out of 10 of what professors do will not end up to be beneficial. And startup and company is only one way to benefit society. It's not the only way. Okay, I want to emphasize that. So thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, great comment. That's great. Yeah, and I think from our startup company point of view, I heard that you have a location, right? That's a different office in the global over the place. Yeah. So how do you feel the globalization for your company to grow? And in terms of from a different region, is there a different region you needed to have a different business practice or not?
Well, I personally think that the healthcare is the last thing that should get heard because of geopolitics, right? Because we're all humans, and we should strive to live healthier lives and discover more medicines, prevent disease at all costs. In terms of our global presence, we have presence in 8 regions. We see it as a paramount for several reasons. Sourcing talent is one thing, right? So we try to source globally. And AI talent is scattered across the planet, right? So you can find it anywhere. We have established a site here in the UAE, about 70 AI scientists working here to discover medicines, right? We adopt so-called Apple model, design in California, made in China. So design in the UAE, made in China. We take advantage of the CRO infrastructure in China, contract research organizations who do synthesis, screening, and China has invested trillions of dollars into this infrastructure, so we're taking advantage of this and doing it in a fabulous way, like Apple does it.
Yes, okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We are about time. Okay, I know it's a lunchtime. We don't want between you and the lunch, right? But however, maybe before we leave, we ask all the panel, give a one sentence, a thought, how you think about IP to IPO from the lab to market. One sentence, if you can summarize, okay? Yeah, starting from Professor Chen.
Well, we need to bridging from the lab to the industry and from IP to IPO. I think every university should try to do that.
Yes.
Everyone have their own local constraints. They have to find their own solution, but they should do it. Yeah.
Okay, Sina.
I think you have to think global from day one.
So I'll again insist that from the lab to industrial, from IP to IPO is not only one way. It should be a kind of we should think about a new type of an approach. It should be a kind of this connection will continue, not only transfer to IP from the creator to the user. Should be a kind of a way that should be a follow-up process.
New approach. Okay, yeah. Alex, yes, the last.
Well, I think generated IP should be a net positive to the society, and the value will follow.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for our panelists to sharing their very rich experience. Okay, yeah, and thank you for audience to engagement. Yeah.